Yesterday, January 6, 2021, the day of the Three Kings and the day of my father's birth, our capital was besieged by the loyal followers of our incumbent president. These Trump supporters raided, mobbed, and destroyed the public property of the Capitol building. Our country has seen once again the power of division and the growing political polarization of the American populace. Our president, as well as other Democratic and Republican leaders, have added timber to this fire. Both sides have committed sin against the state, and they have sinned against those who are also American. They have disrespected every institution, while many institutions encourage this same behavior. Extremism is on the rise, and anyone who tries to appeal to both left-wing and right-wing extremism will risk the collapse of the American empire. Like it says in the good book, 1 John 1:18 states, "If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us." This is our fault. We created this monster. Now we have the audacity to cry and weep about this? My brothers and sisters, fellow classmates, and my superiors, this is not the way, for the media has held us captive by propaganda, bias, and pointless bickering. For we look and criticize the log in our brother's eye that is also in ours. The never-ending back and forth of blaming and condemning each other is based in a double standard. One tribe condemns the right wing while it rewards the left wing, and the other tribe condemns the left wing and kisses the butt of the right wing. People at the center are either trapped or happy they are throwing timber to this civil war. I truly believe that the sort caused days ago by the Trump mob is disgraceful. I also believe that what happened months ago with Antifa establishing their Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, also known as Chaz, in Seattle, was also disgraceful. If there is any chance of us getting back together, we must rid ourselves of this double standard, which with each new controversy that besets us is ever prevalent. My brothers, sisters, fans, zealots, for if we do not handle this problem, a horrible fate we shall receive. If anyone has paid attention to history, may he have ears to hear and eyes to see. Imagine if the mob on Capitol Hill had been more organized, as well as that most of those that would have been there armed like a professional army. Would the regime they established be like the America we know today? Would liberal democracy reign supreme in the freedoms we have upheld? Unfortunately, this would not be the fate. For handing the nation to an angry mob would only mean the destruction of the republic. Would we have become like Germany when the Nazis took power, where freedoms of expression of the press and assembly was suspended, along with approximately 11 million people killed in concentration camps? Would we be like the Soviet Union during Stalin's reign, where 9 million people in total were killed, where people couldn't have private property and everything was given up to the state? Will we be like Argentina during the late 60s and 70s that was run by military governments? Will we become like Venezuela, a country full of natural resources whose own citizens can't afford toilet paper, with even the criminals, the lowest in society, not even being able to afford ammunition? Would we be so quick to give emergency powers to our leaders, like what happened in Hungary recently? Have we already witnessed what almost was like Benito Mussolini's rise to power? For if it happened here, would that regime that would be established be a liberating one, or more like the authoritarian ones recorded in history? Would the Chinese Communist Party celebrate in our collapse? Would Iran be celebrating that one of their enemies has been crushed? Would any of our allies have the will or capacity to intervene in our civil war? For we have intervened and kept our allies safe. But will they do the same for us? For we have overthrown governments in foreign countries, but will they do the same for us? If the American experiment inspired the formation of democracies around the world, where will the free world run to when we are all gone? I'll quote Benito Mussolini, who said, "Democracy is beautiful in theory. In practice, it is a fallacy. You in America will see that someday. If we continue in our sin, his words will have weight. If we don't, then a better fate we will have." Today is a time for choosing, and we only have 3 choices. The first choice is to continue in our sin and become what I have said in this address. The second choice is to unite, rid ourselves of double standards, and reform. The third choice is if we can't get along, let us part ways in a diplomatic and legislative way. Let regions and or states become their own nations. Today is the day of salvation, my friends, and most importantly, the day for your soul's salvation. If you love your country as well as you love your soul, you will hear this plea. With that, I leave you with an excerpt, not only an excerpt, but the whole speech from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. I'll leave this here, and thank you for hearing me for a couple minutes. God bless you, and good night.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate. We cannot consecrate. We cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.